Welcome to We Are Montgomery Township, the podcast where we keep you informed and engaged about what's happening in Montgomery Township in Montgomery County.
Welcome back to Montgomery Township's podcast, We Are Montgomery Township. Today, I am honored to be able to do a very special podcast concerning the Wall That Heals, which will be coming to Montgomery Township in July. With us today, I have Tim Tetz, who is with the Wall That Heals, the foundation in Washington, D.C., and then Deb Rivas, who is on our staff and is serving with me as co-chair for Montgomery Township's event. So, Tim, first of all, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're in the middle of a lot with the tour well underway. So I really appreciate you giving us some time to go over this. Can you just introduce yourself and just talk about your role with the foundation, please?
Absolutely. So I get the opportunity to work as the director of outreach, which means that for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, I oversee all of our public outreach and work with the government and various entities. So not only do I get to come out and be with the Wall That Heals and oversee our team there, but I get to look at the things that happen at the Wall in Washington, D.C., our congressional affairs, and I work with the National Park Service, as well as the Department of Defense, and basically take care of everything that isn't a direct ask for money. But truly, the thing that takes up most of my time on a daily basis is to oversee the 31 communities that have the opportunity to host in 2025 and the meetings that we have with the 2026 applicants and everything else. So it's a never-ending wave ride as you go through my day.
It's hard to believe that you're already looking at 2026. I know the call has gone out for people, and I'm sure there are communities just like us who are considering it, and then they go for it. So can you talk a little bit about what the Wall That Heals is and what inspired its creation?
So the Wall That Heals is a 3/4 scale replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, were the organization that was created as a nonprofit in 1979 to build a national memorial in Washington, D.C. We built that memorial and dedicated it in 1982. We had to add a couple more things to it in 1985. And we still maintain the wall in Washington, D.C. But in 1996, when we looked around, we realized that there were 4 other memorials that were traveling around the country that were some version of the wall in Washington, D.C. And yet, as we looked at them, none of them took the time and dedication to replicate the experience you would get at the wall here in D.C., nor would they take the time to educate the visitors. And so we went out on the road with a half-scale version of the memorial. We used the title of our founder's book, The Wall That Heals, as the name for that memorial. That was a book he wrote about the dedication of the memorial. We used that title as the name, and from 1996 up until 2017, we went to 700 communities in 48 states and 3 nations. In 2017, we decided to be like most Americans and go bigger and better. And so in 2018, we started with a 3/4 scale replica of the memorial. So it is an exact replica of the wall in Washington, D.C. It's made out of synthetic granite. It has that touch and feel and luster of the wall in Washington, D.C. And it have the same experience. As you walk down its length, you feel buried in one amongst the dead, and you can do rubbings on it. It travels with the Mobile Education Center, so it's contained within a 51-foot trailer, but that trailer turns into a museum. So unlike the wall in Washington, D.C., when you come here, you get to have that wall experience. There, when we're in Montgomery Township, you'll get to see the Mobile Education Center. You'll get to learn about the war, experience the way this memorial was created and the myriad of things that people have left behind at the wall, and how this memorial and our Vietnam veterans changed the way we treat our veterans for all the wars that have followed after that, and then get a tour really of the wall there while it's set up. So it's a unique opportunity that you don't even get in Washington, D.C., but it's based off that experience.
So talking about communities, what kind of impact have you seen it make on communities that have hosted it?
You know, the community experience is as varied as the state or town that you're in. In certain communities, unfortunately, it is sometimes held, as a reserve, if you will. The veterans bring it in and they're, focused on that veteran experience. And yet, one of the reasons why Montgomery Township was selected from the 141 applicants that we had last year is that they came to us and said, okay, hey, we're the community, we're the city, but we're bringing in these other organizations. We realize that it's not just the Vietnam veterans that need to be here. It's not just their family members. It's the next generation and the generation that follows that. It's the opportunity to have the healing and the reflection and the remembrance for those of the Vietnam generation. But it's the opportunity for us to take those generations that followed who never learned about it in their schools. They didn't get it covered. They get to have that experience to learn about this war, to learn, the history and the changes that our nation had, and see firsthand the unique perspective from the Vietnam veterans that they wouldn't necessarily get in the classroom, or they might not have learned on YouTube or wherever else they might get their information these days.
It's really interesting you said that, because when Deb and I have talked, we have different reflections, on our knowledge of the war. And I can remember taking an American history class, and the semester's only so long, and they get as far as they can in the syllabus. And unfortunately, they didn't get to the Vietnam War. Conversely now, we have a generation that this truly is part of history to them. When I was in school, it wasn't that far removed. I was in grade school when the war was going on, and, knew of people who were serving and saw families get affected by it. But, as we keep moving forward, this is becoming more and more relegated to really, a history book. And I think that's what really attracted Deb and I to say, let's do this. Let's try to put our name in. Let's see if we can bring this to our community, and not just Montgomery Township, but the community at large. Anybody who's within driving distance, is welcome to come here. Can you just briefly talk about the application and the selection process? Not that we want to blow our own horn that we got selected, but it was rigorous. It was, like the questions were very, on point, and, you just weren't going to give it to anybody. It wasn't bells and whistles that attracted you. So just talk a little bit about the process. We only know our side of it.
Sure, absolutely. So, the wall that heals success is not measured by the size of community. Many people sit there and say, well, why aren't you always in LA or New York or, the bigger communities? Success for the wall that heals comes from the community itself and the committee that comes into it. So, usually a community that's somewhere between 10 and 30,000 is that sweet spot, because you've got your own media, you've got your own infrastructure, and yet it's small enough that you can get out the marketing that everybody knows that, hey, there's this magical thing that's happening down at the park. To host the wall that heals, we're looking for hosts that demonstrate that they've put on other events, which was something that your community obviously came in very strong with. You can bring in 200 plus volunteers that are going to be necessary to set it up and take it down and be with it for the 24 hours a day that will be set up there in Montgomery Township. And that you recognize it's an event unto itself. It's not part of the balloon festival. It's not part of the county fair. This is really an end to its own, and recognizing those pieces. Coming and seeing the wall that heals other communities is important, because we want you to experience it firsthand and say, okay, we get it. We understand how it has to be. And then just that communication and open willingness to partner with us. We want it to be successful. It doesn't do any good for us to come into a community and only have 2,000 people come to it. We want you to be successful. And as you know now firsthand, we not only work you through that process, but then we spend 8 nights as we work through it to give you those Zoom trainings to walk you through it, and then countless hours of meeting with your committee and running you through and asking you those pointed questions to say, hey, did you consider this? Hey, where are you on this checklist? And we want it to be successful. And that's why we spend so much time in that selection process and then working with each of our selectees.
Those Zoom meetings were powerful. And at times I felt like I needed a paper bag to breathe into, because it was a lot. It's just Deb and I watching this and listening and thinking, oh my gosh, but coming back in and being able to report to people, and people saying, we got this, we can do this. But you have walked us through that process brilliantly. So once it comes here, what does the Mobile Education Center look like? Like what is its role? How does it impact, the visitors who are coming?
So, in the ideal setup for any of our sites, people land in a parking lot and they get out of their cars, and we have to kind of give them that entry and that experience. And so the mobile education center is usually the first stop in that. It is literally the 53-foot trailer. It looks like a giant NASCAR trailer that's been refit, that we haul everything that we need in it. So the entire exhibit for The Wall That Heals is inside that trailer. It's going to fill up a football field. It is 375 feet from end to end. But then the outside of that trailer opens up, and it contains 5 different panels. In addition to those panels, there is a timeline of the war that talks about the 25 years of the war. There is another exhibit that talks about the different parts of the exhibit, the 3 servicemen statue, the in memory marker of the women's memorial, and the flagpole. But the 5 different display cabinets are unique and tied specifically to your community. So one of them is a giant 6-foot television screen that's going to show you everybody from your county and each of the counties that touch your county. So those are your hometown heroes. These are the men who went off to Vietnam and were killed there during the wartime period. A second screen, again, same 6-foot television monitor, is going to cycle through all of the Pennsylvanians that have been honored through the In Memory program. The In Memory program is a program that was started in 1999 to honor and remember those Vietnam veterans who came back from Vietnam and have died since their service there. Pennsylvania has more honorees than any other state in the nation. And we're going to show you everyone from Pennsylvania on that whose family has put in their name and their pictures and been recognized through that program. And then we have 3 cabinets that are unlike anything you'll see anywhere else online or in real life. And these are cabinets that contain some of the 400,000 items that have been left behind at the wall in Washington, D.C. So these are the notes and the uniform pieces and the baby sweater and those items that if you can make it through those items and not have a tear in your eyes, your tear ducts are literally broken, because there are poignant things. There are things that'll make you laugh. You get to experience those things because we have brought them out of the collection here in Washington, D.C., and you get to see that the personal side to each and every one of those people on the wall. And that's a unique part of that. All of this will be exposed throughout the week. So, it can be self-guided. You can come anytime, but because you get it in July, we're going to be doing guided tours around the exhibit. And those are there on your website. So you can sit there and sign up and say, hey, I want to come down and I want to go through a guided tour. Our team will literally guide your visitors through it, and we'll put it all in perspective. So even if you were alive during Vietnam, we're going to put that 25-year history in perspective that we know it now. We'll talk about the creation of the memorial. We'll link it all together and talk how it changes our experience with veterans these days. And then we'll end there at the wall. And all of a sudden you go, wow, I've been to the wall in Washington, D.C. 10 times, and I didn't know all this great stuff. That's one of the unique things that you have that week.
So that's, I think, what separates this from going to Washington. Here you are really, you can immerse yourself in it. The one in Washington, you have so much else down there. It becomes, for some people, it's just another thing to click off on their list of things to see while they're in Washington. I think here, people who come, there's an intentionality about it, to come because they want to experience this. Last month, I was at an event, and it was in a neighboring county, and the gentleman did research on 136 young men who lost their lives in the war. And he had pictured, at one point he was just playing music and had their picture, their hometown, their high school, their marital status. And these are kids, like I look at it now since I'm older, and they're kids who one day they were at their family's dinner table and the next day they're across the world. One was in country for 12 days before his parents got the notification. And you're right. If I was sobbing, I was in the back of the room sobbing, and then I had to speak about the wall that heals. So I had to I had to pull myself together. But it doesn't matter who we talk to. Everybody is either really interested or at least they're intrigued by it, and it's just different from anything else that I've ever seen or been involved in. So, first of all, thank you. Thank you for choosing us. I know Deb feels the same way. Well, you're not muted, Deb. You're welcome to jump in. I apologize.
No, I love to listen to Tim. He's amazing.
Yeah, you made the Zoom meeting so much easier. After working all day and then going home and doing, like you said, 8 meetings. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. So let's talk a little bit about what you hope people will remember after visiting the wall and seeing the Mobile Education Center.
The unique thing about the wall that heals, as you pointed out, is that you don't have to then, pack yourself up and come a couple hours down coast here to Washington, D.C. and be a part of it and mix it in with everything else you have. I hope that people walk away having given the time to experience all that is the wonder of the memorial. I hope that they sit there and they walk away with a better understanding of what this war was like. The impetus and reason why those Vietnam veterans came up with the idea to build a memorial to put on the National Mall, and how that memorial and its vision, the original vision of Jan Scruggs was to say, I think if we build a memorial there on the National Mall, it will heal this nation. That was a lofty goal. That was a lofty goal because you're going to sit there and say a memorial, no matter how grandiose it might be, is going to heal 25 years of animosity and anger. And 2, we didn't have memorials on the National Mall. So having that understanding that here this 21-year-old architecture student came up with this vision, and she tied in this wonderful, beautiful things and the symbolism and meanings to sit there and realize that now, because of this memorial, every single other wartime period in our nation's history has a memorial on the National Wall. They even are under construction for the Persian Gulf Memorial, and they're fundraising for the post 9/11 Memorial. Our nation honors veterans with memorials on the National Mall because of the vision of this memorial. And then to see that and realize that the reason why, when you see a service member in uniform, no matter whether you're 18 months old or 98 years old, you walk up and shake their hand. The reason why we don't get angry at our service members who go off to whatever country we're sending them to this month is because our Vietnam veterans sat there and said, we're going to separate the war from the warrior. And this is the reason why that no other generation is going to be treated the way that I was treated when I came back from Vietnam. And let's make sure that we live up to that promise. That's the gift that it paid forward. We take for granted today that our service members are treated as they are. We take for granted as veterans that we're treated as nicely as we are. That was the gift that came out of this. And when you can put it in perspective and see the history of this war and what led to this memorial and how they paid it forward, it is going to enlighten and change your perspective on a lot of things, both of the immediate past, but certainly in the present and the future.
So in closing, before I let you jump off, they're going to obviously be moved by this. And when people are moved by it, they want to learn more. So how can not only veterans who might not be aware of the foundation, but their families and just other supporters get involved with the foundation or look into finding out about, where you're going to be next and future visits, going into 2026 even?
Sure. So, the portal to all the great things that we have on our website is really thewallthatheals.org. If you can remember that term and type in wallthatheals.org, you're going to get to the page that's going to talk about our stop there in Montgomery Township. You're going to get in and better understand the exhibit and what's going to happen there in your community here in July. And from there, you can go to the Wall of Faces and you can see the photographs of the 58,281 men and women on the wall. You can go into the In Memory program and see how you can honor your loved one or your neighbor who died after their service in Vietnam. And you can go in and see some of the 2,000 items left behind and read some of those lessons and all those things. We just today put up a brand new exhibit of some of the over 200 photos from Vietnam, photos from that era in celebration of the closing of the 50 years since this war. That's a new piece that we put on our webpage. It changes every single day. We want it really to be that end stop for everything you need to know about the war and the memorial. And by going through the wall that heals, you can start there with Montgomery Township, and you can expand your opportunities in so many ways.
Great. Tim, thank you so much for your time. We deeply appreciate it. We know how busy you are. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me. I look forward to a successful event there in Montgomery Township here in July.
As do we. Thanks so much. Okay, Deb, we're on. So we're going to talk about Montgomery Township. That's going to be a hard act to follow. If
I don't know. Tim's amazing.
to Tim. So you were involved in the very early discussion between you and I about doing this. Why do you think it's important for a community like ours to host the Wall That Heals?
I think Tim touched a little bit on that. I think it's important not only for the veterans, but also for the families and for young people in the community. I think that, as you mentioned, it's now history, and many young people, I think Tim touched on it 50 years ago today, or 50 years ago this year was the fall of Saigon. So it's very much history that a lot of young people, a lot of even 20, 30-year-olds aren't as familiar with. So to bring it here, we can expose that information to all types of people. And I think our community and the communities that surround us have, like he said, from the 18-month-old to the 98-year-old. So I think this is a great opportunity in our area to bring it for folks to see.
And I just hope that visitors who come to the park, which for those who don't know, will be at Wendell Strait Park, which is on Keenest Road. I hope they walk away with just, wow, this was so much better or so much different than I thought it was going to be. And I hope that it impacts them and just gives them food for thought, because he talks about, and multiple times in the Zoom calls, hate the war, but not the warrior. And that stuck with me. We look at the military now, and how many times have you seen them and you thank them for their service, or you see videos of them, coming into the airport and people stopping and applauding them. The Army of today looks very different. They're trained, they're fit, they've chosen, which I think is critical. They've chosen this career path. Those who went in Vietnam for the most part were drafted.
Yes.
One summer they're home, and then next thing you know, their number comes up and they're in boot camp, and then they're on the other side of the world. So I just hope that visitors walk away with just that feeling of reverence, and that feeling of like, wow, what a sacrifice these individuals made, at a time where soldiers were not appreciated when they came back from this war.
Absolutely.
And they didn't always get the recognition, even the fallen, I'm sad to say. Like now we do, but back then, it just was different. So let's talk a little bit about community involvement, if you don't mind. How can people in our community get involved, either as volunteers or sponsors, or just all around supporters of this initiative on our behalf?
So we have created a website. You can get to it multiple ways. One is through our township website. Under events at the top, you can get to the Wall That Heals. We also have abbreviated monttwp.org/the Wall That Heals will get you to our website. And we have opportunities for folks to volunteer at the wall. We have different positions where you're seated or you're standing or you're helping folks find names on the wall, helping folks get parked. It's an opportunity for folks to volunteer and be a part of not just visiting the wall, but being a part of allowing other people to come visit the wall. And I think I'm anticipating that experience is going to be just overwhelming to be able to help folks to come and visit and see it. We also have opportunities for sponsorships, individual sponsorships from folks, companies, businesses, supporters in that way too. I think that the sponsors are hugely important because they are offering us the opportunity to provide things to our volunteers, to provide things to the folks that visit us. We're renting golf carts. We're just getting things that'll help us make it easier for folks to visit the wall. So there are many opportunities. You can always contact us by phone as well. If you have something you would like to offer, or if you want to find out more information. But those are great opportunities to be a part of this experience.
And I think while we talk about sponsorships, there's room for anyone to donate. For example, the other week we had a gentleman come in on behalf of the bank that he works for, made a donation. We did a photo op with him, but he brought his dad along, and his dad had served in Vietnam, and his dad wore his hat, and he made a donation. And no, it's not like a corporate donation, but it to me it was even more impactful because this gentleman to me already donated simply by serving during the wartime.
Yeah.
And then, as far as like local businesses, in-kind donations are welcome. There are certain things we need. I mean, we've talked about this. We're going to be in July. So everything from bug spray, sunscreen, anything you can imagine. We're going to be looking at our local merchants to offer possibly, help in feeding the volunteers, offering us gift cards so that we can buy supplies that we need, whether it's protein bars or granola bars or, some type of snack, cases of Gatorade to sustain the volunteers who are going to actually build the wall. Let's talk a little bit about the build, if you don't mind. I know I'm hitting you with questions that maybe we didn't discuss, but what's that day going to look like, from what your understanding is?
The day the wall is built?
Yes.
Okay. So the wall is going to roll into town on Tuesday, July the 8th. There will be an escort, and there'll be more information about that forthcoming. But on Wednesday, July 9th, starting very early in the morning, we have secured approximately 35 to 50 volunteers who are going to help construct the wall. And it's going to take approximately 6 hours, although I hear some folks are going to try to make that record carefully.
5 hours and 59 minutes.
Right. But when the mobile education unit comes and it gets set up, the wall is inside. So they're going to lay out the apex, and then they're going to bring out panel by panel each of those pieces and construct the wall right before our eyes in a very reverent way. There would be 2 folks from the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund who will be on site with us, instructing the folks who have volunteered to build the wall, to do it respectfully, appropriately. We have to be very careful because it is, we believe, got to keep it safe because it's got to go to the next town when it's done here. But that's about a 6-hour process. And then once it's built, it will be open almost immediately. Wednesday evening, we will be training our volunteers at 6 p.m. And then the next morning, we will be having our opening ceremony. But the wall will be open once it is built. So we're looking forward to that experience.
I think one of my favorite parts is the fact that our public works staff is taking the lead on the build itself. And I think this is one of the things that made our application so strong, because while they point to other organizations, which we loved the idea of partnering with, it's our staff that is sort of taking the lead on each different role that's within this event that's coming up for us. So our public works staff is partnered with other public works departments. There is a local home builder who has reached out to us and said, I can bring a crew in to help with the wall. I think that's the neatest part for me, is seeing people just, at a time where all of our time is valuable, to see people just say, yes, I'm in. What do you need? And I think you can speak to this. How's the response been from the community so far in terms of the volunteer sign up? I know we had certain metrics that the people at the Memorial Fund expected us to meet, and, we monitor this carefully.
Yeah, well, we needed to meet, I think, 75% by like June 15th. And I think we met 95% by like April 15th. We set up our Sign Up Genius early on. We got the word out to folks, thanks to our public information team. And it just took off. It took off. And folks were signing up left and right. In fact, we keep thinking about our process here and thinking, it's probably going to be a very popular event for folks to visit. So even as we go through looking at the volunteer spots, we've been opening up some spots here and there because there are people who are asking to volunteer, and we're running out of spots. So we are going to open up a few spots in addition to allow people to sign up. But it has been incredibly overwhelming, the response, and we're so grateful. There are veterans who've signed up. There are young people. There are a grandfather whose grandson has worked actually at the Wall That Heals in another town, and he signed up because his grandson absolutely loved the experience and wants to do it again. So I couldn't be more pleased with all of our residents and businesses and everyone who has decided to join us in this event.
So for those people who might be listening who haven't seen our explosion on social media, or the posters that we've put up, or the cards that are being given out, the Wall That Heals is coming to Montgomery Township. It will be open to the public officially starting on July 10th through July 13th. July 10th, 11th, and 12th, the wall is open 24/7. So that means you can come to the park. We recognize it's July. You want to come early in the morning, you want to come late at night, you want to, for some reason, come overnight, the park will be open for that. On that Sunday, the 13th, it closes at 2 p.m. And the reason it has to close at 2 p.m. is because the wall has to be taken down, has to be stored back on the Mobile Education Center, and they have to leave here to go to the next destination. And as Tim said, there are 31 destinations. And because we're in the summer, we recognize that could present its own challenges. And we're diligently working on that internally and with our staff to make sure that, we recognize that, heat might be an issue. I know there's been discussion about mobility and accommodations. And I want to assure everybody, Deb talked about it earlier, we are renting electric golf carts. So those people who have mobility issues, there will be a volunteer with an electric golf cart to get you from your vehicle up to the wall. And then we will have wheelchairs there as well, because we can only bring the golf cart up so far. And then we'll be able to take people further up to the wall. Those people who have their own devices, their own means of getting around, they're welcome to bring that. If they have a caregiver with them, they're welcome. Their caregiver is welcome. We will have plenty of handicaps parking in our parking lot. One of the reasons we put our name in is because Windle Strait Park is a jewel in the township, but is also very functional. So we will have bathrooms there on site that will be able to be used for handicapped individuals, and then because they are ADA accessible. And then we will have porta potties there for those of us who do not need ADA accommodations. There will be volunteers, as Deb said. So you will get there. You will not be an island. You will not be wandering around the park trying to figure out where to go. There will be people who are floaters. There will be a welcome tent. There will be people at the Mobile Education Center. So I think it's just really important to know that all this planning is to guarantee that our visitors have the best experience possible at the wall. So Deb, let's switch gears a bit and talk about veterans. How are we recognizing local veterans during our event?
So there will be two opportunities that we'll be doing that each day, beginning on Thursday through Saturday. I'm not sure if we're doing one Sunday yet, but we will be doing a wreath laying ceremony, a very brief wreath laying ceremony at the wall at noontime, and that will be done by a local veteran. And then also on Friday evening, we will be having a PTSD ceremony I believe it's about a half an hour after sunset. We will have candles, electric candles for everyone. And it's a ceremony whereby everyone will line up and walk toward the wall. The wall will be highlighted in teal, which is the color for PTSD. And then we will have local veterans here read the names of 136 veterans who are local to us in Montgomery County. And then, as Tim mentioned, also on the Mobile Education Center, all of the service members who are on the wall will be shown on the wall of faces on the Mobile Education Center from our county and counties that surround us. And then in addition, the In Memory program veterans will be showcased from Pennsylvania.
I'm also looking forward to speaking to veterans there who can share their stories if they're willing to. Just anecdotally, as we're walking around with them, because I spoke to someone not that long ago who served, who actually, and I won't use his name because he fudged a little on his birth date so that he could serve. He switched his role while he was overseas, unbeknownst to his family. And he was a gunner on one of the Huey helicopters. And he didn't tell me this. Somebody else told me this when they saw me talking to him. His helicopter had been shot down 3 times while he was over there. and he served during, I remember his humor in this. He served during a leap year, and he joked with me and he said, my biggest hope was that I wouldn't die on that extra day. And
Oh my goodness.
I was so like, I look at him and I think, wow, like how do you do that at that age, that you take that on? And I'm hoping that there will be veterans there who will share their stories with other people visiting, because I think, it's great to read books. It's great to watch a documentary, but the most impactful thing is just talking to someone you might just happen to be standing next to, whether it's someone like us or whether it's a high school student who's there, just hearing from someone who served and who possibly knows people whose names are unfortunately on that wall.
I was really very pleased to see that quite a few of our volunteers that have signed up are Vietnam veterans, specifically stated that they were, and we're looking forward to talking to other people.
I think that's great. So, how can veterans or their families share their stories through the Wall That Heals experience?
So we have partnered with the North Wales Area Library. They have a new platform called Their Story, and they are launching this as part of the library. But what's more important is the initial launch of the platform will be for the Wall That Heals. They're inviting Vietnam veterans, service members, and their families to record and share their personal experiences from the Vietnam War era. Um, you can do it face to face with a librarian. You can do it at home from the comfort of your own home, whether it be on a Zoom call or whether it be on a phone call. I think there are different ways that they can do it, however you would be more comfortable. And it allows our community to preserve histories and to preserve your story that, maybe you didn't tell before, but maybe now you're ready to tell it. I think, I have in my family, my grandfather was a Navy veteran from World War II. And there were so many stories he told when I was a little kid that I now wish I had him here, because it would have been a totally different experience. So to record that would have been a great opportunity. So you can contact the library. Jennifer Koch is the director, through their website, also through her email. It's jkoch@northwaleslibrary.org. And she will be running this program. And we look forward to hearing how many folks would like to share their story.
Great. So, let's close our conversation. How can people stay updated or help spread the word about our event?
So we have our website. We are also sharing our information on our Facebook page, our Instagram. We also have a separate e-newsletter now for just the Wall That Heals. We include all the information at the bottom of our regular e-news each week that we send out on Fridays. You can go to our website under the events tab, is the Wall That Heals, and any new updates, any information is going to be all over the place. We're also reaching out to local media as we get closer to the event. We'll be sharing information with local news stations. You'll see posters everywhere. You may see coasters at your local restaurant, cards. We are trying to get the word out to as many people as possible. We knew the wall had come here a couple of years ago, but we weren't aware of it until after it had passed. And we were really disappointed in the fact that we didn't get a chance to see it. So we are trying our best to spread the word. We're asking folks, if you know about it, to spread the word. Just let people know that it's going to be here, because it is an opportunity. I don't know when it will come back this way, but it's a great opportunity for someone to come and just absolutely experience it.
You made a really good point, because one of the things that was in our favor was last year the wall was not in Pennsylvania. So
Correct.
when we put our application in, they noticed that it wasn't there in 2024. And I have to I say this a lot internally, but I still think one of the best ideas, that came organically out of a meeting was our police chief, Bill Peoples, looked at our postcards that we were putting out and suggested, why don't we do coasters? And our public information team got on it right away, put an order in, and now we're going to local restaurants and asking them, could you please use these as coasters? So for the next, 30 days leading up to it, they will be using them and people will see it on there. There's a QR code on there, and hopefully that will also help spread the word, because I don't want anybody to feel that they missed out and they wish they had known. And I mean, social media is great, but we've bought lawn signs and like you said, the poster at your grocery store or a restaurant that you go to. I know you saw them up at Washington Crossing, which I thought was amazing that they posted it, because I think it's really important, because there are people who might not get to Washington, not even because of their mobility issues, but just because of the busyness of life. And here it's going to be a 3/4 replica. And as he said, it's synthetic granite. You'll be able to take the tissue paper and shade over it to get the name if there's somebody on there that or somebody on there that another family member knew. So what are your hopes for the days that the wall that heals is here? And I'm looking at the calendar. It will be here in 42 days, 8 hours, and 19 minutes. Do you remember when it was 185 days? It was, oh, we've got time. This is good.
I know it's coming. It's coming no matter what. Gosh, what do I hope? I really hope that in our busy, busy world, and today more than ever, people drive crazy. Everything's instantaneous, that people park their cars and walk onto that field and just take a breath and relax and experience this moment, because it is historical. There will, hopefully ever in our lifetime be a monument like this that honors 58,281 people who died. And I think if you can just take a break from your everyday crazy life and take a moment to come and visit and experience it and learn and think about what these service members went through, that maybe when you leave, you'll just be a little bit different. You'll be a little bit changed for the better.
I think couldn't say it better. I think that's well said. And I think for the people who volunteer, I hope that they feel the same way. And I hope that they walk away feeling like, wow, I was really part of something really special. I think just seeing our staff come together and working on this as one, which we've done on so many other things, from a pandemic to Autumn Fest, to just anything that we do, we come together, job titles go away. It's just, okay, everybody roll up your sleeves. We're getting this done. But I hope they all take a breath too. And, in the craziness of it, and, we're going to be busy and we're all going to be running around. But I hope everybody on our side who's involved in this also just takes a moment and just really steps back. Maybe they come back. Maybe it's not when they're on their shift, obviously, but they come back some evening and just walk it and experience it and look around at everybody there. And like you said, walk away feeling different about things. And it puts other things in life in perspective for us.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for your time, Deb.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of We Are Montgomery Township.
Thanks for listening to the We Are Montgomery Township podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow Montgomery Township on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at MontTWP. Our display name is Montgomery Township, PA. Until next time, we are Montgomery Township.